A huge blast of warm air is hitting much of the US, and at the same time, an extreme storm system is barreling towards California. And at the exact same time, you're seeing huge winter storms impacting parts of the Northeast. Let's get right into this video. This huge storm system is about to barrel towards parts of California regions with extreme impacts. The first round of rain is going to come through here on Tuesday night tonight through parts of Wednesday morning, and is going to dump some extreme rainfall across the coastal areas of San Francisco, parts of Northern California up here that could see some really strong showers, and even some big time showers near Los Angeles regions that are just going to train over these areas over and over again, especially in those mountainous regions of California. Then we could potentially see another round of rain that could come through on Wednesday night in portions of California that could maybe pose an isolated tornado risk with this. I do think the main tornado risk could come with these storms that we do get on Wednesday night, where we do get another explosion of storms that's going to just move through parts of San Francisco and many of the coastal areas of California, and this one actually could have a little bit of spin to it. We're seeing some very minimal surface instability, but some of that moisture is kind of moving onto those areas that I definitely do think could pose a risk for some tornadoes with each round of storms that does come through here. If we do get any supercells, we could get a few tornadoes, which is really rare for parts of California here. And not just that, this snow is just going to be non-stop, just constant snow across the mountainous areas in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which this HRRR model is showing nearly the maximum of 130 inches of snow towards parts of the Sierra Nevada mountains. This is insane. I do think some spots in the mountains could see up to 100 inches of snow, causing extremely treacherous snowfall impacts. This could be that wet, heavy snow that we do typically see in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which is a lot different from the snow that's a lot lighter and fluffier in areas like Utah and Colorado, due to that moisture and that more warmth that we see in California there. And it's going to cause some extreme impact. So I would not recommend any driving at all tomorrow or throughout Christmas in the Sierra Nevada mountains. If you're going skiing or anything like in Mammoth Mountain or Lake Tahoe areas, I would strongly advise you not to go skiing at all in these areas. It's going to be treacherous impacts out there, extreme snowfall, and just anywhere around California is going to see some really big time impacts. Not just that, we're going to see some really extreme wind gusts with this. The first round of wind gusts is going to really develop here tonight through Wednesday morning, especially across the coastal areas of California, where some areas could see up to 60 to maybe even 70 miles an hour gusts, and that could also be really prominent across the more hilly mountainous regions in California. And this is also, I just got to bring out the fact that I'm sorry I'm talking about this for so long, but the rainfall is going to be absolutely extreme for parts of these regions. Areas like Los Angeles, California could potentially see up to 8 inches of rainfall in some areas. If we let's zoom into Southern California here to Los Angeles regions, the National Weather Service is predicting 5 inches of rain for Los Angeles. Then the mountainous regions north of Los Angeles, some areas may need to evacuate because of how extreme this rainfall could actually get across parts of those regions and the mudslides that could occur. Some areas could see up to 10 inches of rainfall in the mountainous regions, so some extreme impacts with this system. And those wind gusts are really going to impact parts of the Los Angeles mountainous regions too. So if you're in the Los Angeles mountains, it's not going to be a fun day for you. I had the wrong graphic up, but parts of Los Angeles could actually see nearly up to 6 inches of rainfall in Los Angeles Metro, then maybe even up to 14 inches of rainfall in some of the mountainous regions. So across the whole coast, any of these red areas that you see across the area could see 2 to 4, 5, maybe even 8 inches of rainfall, especially in those darker brown regions here that are just going to see some extreme rainfall impacts. Then parts of Central California, most of California is going to see 2 to 5, maybe even 6 inches of rain, especially across the coastal areas going all the way from Los Angeles all the way up to northern parts of California, where extreme flooding could be possible. And then these snow impacts are going to be insane. This is the National Weather Service predicting. Look at that max down there, 127 inches of snow. Some parts could see 6, feet of snow here in these regions. We could see up to 100 inches of snow in some spots in the Lake Tahoe areas. Much of the Sierra Nevada mountains are just going to see extreme impact by this constant waves of heavy rainfall that's going to move through these areas. So it's not going to be a fun next few days for Christmas time here in California. When the first round of rainfall comes through parts of California regions tonight, that's why the Weather Prediction Center has issued a slight risk of excessive rainfall going all the way up from Eureka, California, all the way down through San Francisco, San Jose, all the way through Los Angeles regions, and especially in those mountainous areas near Santa Barbara, Santa Paula, Glendale, Pasadena regions where we have a slight risk of flash flooding tonight. So already some flooding issues tonight with the first round of rain, but tomorrow's round of rain is going to be even more significant. We will still have that continued slight risk of flash flooding in Sacramento, San Francisco regions, then in that Valley of California near Fresno areas and Sacramento regions. But then this is what we really want to see. The moderate to extremely dangerous high risk of flash flooding tomorrow on Christmas Eve for Los Angeles regions, mainly all of Los Angeles, Long Beach, Santa Barbara, Oxnard, Riverside regions are all under a moderate risk of flash flooding, which means at least a 40 to 70% chance of flash flooding across that region. And then up here in the high risk, the pink areas, including Thousand Oaks, Burbank, Glendale, Pasadena, San Bernardino, Redlands, all the way to Santa Clarita, are under a extremely dangerous high risk of flash flooding tomorrow, guys, across these areas where at least a 70% chance of flash flooding is extremely likely in these areas. That's how insane this is going to be with rainfall. This is an extremely dangerous situation for these areas, and that could lead to mudslides and many other issues in these areas too. Some areas may need to evacuate in these mountainous regions here, which is definitely going to cause extremely dangerous impacts. And on Christmas Day, we still have a slight risk of flash flooding in Los Angeles and San Francisco and Sacramento areas. That's going to continue for a long time in these areas, and then it'll finally fade off here once we get to the 26th and 27th. Now, one of the main things I want to talk about is this extreme ridge that we were having across much of the central and western and eastern U.S., basically the entire U.S. under this huge ridge of warmth. Now, this does mean we're not going to see as many storm systems. It's basically blocking that pattern where we have extreme storm systems move through much of these regions, and it's more like just a really quiet weather pattern, but it's going to be extremely warm. If you do love snow, this pattern is terrible. If you're in the Northeast, that's probably your only bet for snowfalls. We do get a few of those cold blasts coming through, especially here on Friday across much of the Northeast. But man, it is going to be warm on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, some areas across the southern U.S. could be seeing 70s, maybe even 80-degree temperatures. And then on Saturday, it's going to be on Friday, it's going to be even warmer across much of these regions. So some extreme warmth that we are going to be seeing over the next few days or so across much of the southern and central U.S. It's very abnormally warm for this time of year. If you look at the temperature anomalies, it's extremely above average. But one thing I'm noticing is we're finally going to get an Arctic blast that's going to come through here on the 29th on Monday that I am watching that could finally bring our temperatures down to some colder weather across the central and eastern U.S., but sadly this is going to be a dry, cold blast, not really bring much in the way of snowfall for much of the central U.S., just some cooler weather, and then we'll go right back to extreme warmth by January 3rd, but then it's getting way too far to see more details, but really the overall pattern we're in is just a big-time ridge, bringing more warmth and less snowstorms, but we could definitely see some Arctic blasts that will come through parts of these regions, but definitely just some extreme warmth. If we look at the GFS extended, which kind of tells us a prediction of what could happen, it does say that this extreme warmth is kind of going to fizzle out a little bit once we get into January, but it's still going to stay here for a long time. It doesn't say we show a big switch to cooler weather until all the way to the middle of January. So that's definitely not a great sign for snow lovers, but no matter what, we will see some Arctic blasts that will come through, and this is not going to be something absolutely extreme. This also does not mean that you're going to see 80-degree temperatures every day. This just means above average for this time of year. So if your average temperature is 40 degrees, it's going to be more like 50 degrees because of this above average temperatures that we are going to be seeing across much of the U.S. Now, most of the U.S. is not going to see much in the way of snowfall to this huge ridge that is going to impact much of the U.S., but the last thing I do want to talk about is we could see an actual pretty big snowfall system move through parts of the northeastern regions on I'm not even sure which day, on Friday here, that could impact much of the northeastern parts of the U.S. This thing will develop here on Thursday night, and a Friday morning. It's going to be a pretty fast mover, but could bring some significant sleet and ice impacts across parts of Michigan regions there that could pose a pretty big freezing rain and ice risk. And then we could see this big time snowfall system really develop here and also bring more of an ice risk to Michigan, Ohio, maybe even Pennsylvania and Maryland regions with some big time sleet and freezing rain. And then it's a potential big time snowfall system for parts of the northeastern regions that I did want to watch there. We look at the NAM12. The NAM12 KM is not showing this as much. We're still a little uncertain with the main impacts that this system could really bring because it is still slightly far out. It's only, it's only a few days out if you really realize this thing is going to impact these regions on Friday, but it is really hard to predict wintertime snowfall here. But if we do kind of get an idea of what we could see, we're going to look at the national blend of models to really get a good depiction on what we could potentially see from the system. It is showing this wide swath of ice that could potentially impact parts of Michigan, Ohio, and especially towards parts of Pennsylvania. If we look at parts of the eastern U.S., let's go to the northeastern regions. I'm just going to flip my camera over here real quick. We could potentially see some significant ice impacts across Pennsylvania, into West Virginia, and Maryland. This is showing, this is a pretty significant sign for the national blend of models, which is typically conservative, showing a quarter of an inch of ice for much of Pennsylvania and New York regions in central Pennsylvania areas that could bring a pretty significant ice storm. So this is definitely something I want to watch that could bring some pretty significant impacts. But this thing is also going to bring a lot of snowfall impacts with it too. If we look at the 15Z national blend of models real quick, it's definitely showing that we do get a pretty wide swath of snow. It's really showing that the snowfall kind of increases once we get to parts of New York regions, but much of Connecticut could see 4 to 5 inches of snow. Parts of areas like Springfield, Massachusetts, seeing 2 to 5 inches of snow potentially across those regions. Really will get more impacts. More details on this. This could definitely change. Then upstate New York seeing 4 to 6 inches of snow. Then a really big swath confined in the New York City regions where we could see a ton of snow for New York City, showing potentially 6 to 8 inches of snowfall with this conservative national blend of models which blends all the models together. So we could see even more snow out of this, but this is showing 6 to 8 inches of snow potentially on this model, which is pretty crazy for New York City. And especially it's going to be pretty great for snow lovers in New York City based on the winters they've had over the last few years or so. So this is definitely something I'm watching, and we will get more details as we get closer to this. Alright, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. Sorry, this was a really long video. I had a lot to talk about today. We're really going to see that ridge impacting much of the central, eastern, basically the whole U.S. with much above average and a more calm weather. But California is completely out of it with extreme rainfall and extreme impacts with snowfall, rain, flash flooding, and more dangerous impacts that's going to come to California across the next few days or so that could cause catastrophic impacts potentially across California. So some big time storm system is going to impact those regions, and then also some potential snow that could impact parts of the Northeast, including New York City regions, in a few days or so on Friday that we could definitely see. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and bye everybody.